Hey, shalom, 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 family. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings to you guys, wherever you listen in from. Welcome back to another episode of the Dabarym Scripture Research Institute, where we're going to be going through some scriptures to learn more about the Hebrew language, culture, and ultimately the people, right? So today we're going to be learning more about the letter Ha, right? We're going to be researching about letter Ha, which is the fourth character of the Hebrew alphabet. So before we can start talking about words and breaking down the Hebrew words, we got to understand the letters that make up the Hebrew words that we're going to be talking about going forward. So that's what this breakdown is all about. This is a very important foundational study, right? So to get you get all on the same page, today we're gonna be talking about what is the Ha, right? Commonly called Hey. I know if you look up the Hebrew alphabet or the alphabet, it's gonna say Hey. It's the fourth letter Hey, but that's not what we find when we look in scriptures. You're gonna see Ha, right? So that's the fourth. That's the name of the fourth character, right? So we're gonna get the understanding from scripture. We're gonna talk about what is the Ha, what does it mean, and how do we find all this out, right? How do we find exactly what is these accurate answers for what this letter means, and how can we know that it's correct? So all this is very important, and what we got to understand is very few people understand Hebrew, right? Much less the more culturally accurate and more relevant Abadit, right? That's the true Hebrew. That's how you say Hebrew or Hebrew. People don't even understand either or, right? So it's important to make sure we just looking in the scriptures to get sound information, the right answers and stuff like that. So today we just gonna let the scriptures define themselves, and we're gonna get the answers from the scriptures. Okay, so this shouldn't take long. You got to just stick with me, pay attention. We should get through these couple of references in 5 to 10 minutes, I believe so. So again, I'm your host, Yahuwah. Been walking this walk, being a Hebrew, living by these commandments, researching these topics, at least one day a week, at least on Shabbat, but more often than not, researching a lot of these topics to get to the answers for myself. And at this point, we're really trying to share what we learned and then continue to build a community around this base of knowledge, the Hebrew culture. So let's get started. Let's talk about the Ha, right? So very important character in Hebrew culture. We know that these letters and the ultimate words that they create are the building blocks of scripture. So we need to be familiar with them. Right. So the Ha, as you see, I mentioned, you can see it spelled out as this one character is called by a word that is spelled with two characters, right? So the Ha, it represents they have the sound of, and it is represented by the English letter H in words. So we're just talking about the letter H, but in the Hebrew vocabulary, Hebrew understanding, we don't just call our letters by H, right? It's called a Ha, right? So it has a name for the letter, and that name is spelled H-A, two characters, right? So the Ha is spelled Ha Alaf, right? In the Hebrew, that's what you want to say, Ha Alaf, H-A. And it gives the sound of H as in hot, right? At the beginning of a word, just like that. But it also gives the word the sound of ah, elsewhere in the word, as in Judah, just like Yahuwah. Again, this particular letter is very important because this letter is one of the three letters that appears in the Most High's name. So we're gonna see these rules play out. How it's saying A-H-I. It has an ah sound at the end of a word, elsewhere in the word. So you'll see that in countless examples, and that's why we want to let the scriptures define themselves and actually walk out some of these examples so we can see, right? So we just got a couple of different versions for you guys. Take note of. We see the ancient form mentioned here. Well, it's called a paleo form, or ancient. It's an older form, but not as old as the pictographic form, which we see also drawn out right here. And we see it's like a pictographic image of what seems to be a man with praying with his hands lifted up, most likely praying or swearing, right? praying or swearing. It's important to understand that the Ha has a numerical value of 5. And now we're going to talk about the definitions. When we say definitions, it's mainly the understanding of how this word has been translated in the English language. More than a definition, it kind of basically equates to a definition, but it's really an outline of biblical usage, right? So the Ha has been translated in English to as low, behold, even, or the, right? A lot of times it's the. We know that Ha is a preposition in the Hebrew language that basically has the same meaning as the. This is how we put the in the beginning of the word as a preposition. The president, the door, the house. It's the same with Ha in the Hebrew language. So that's important to understand. That alone makes this a very important character, right? Because it's one that's used in the preposition of a lot of words, right? So now you know I believe Ha. Right. So just talking a little bit more about how this general information. Again, we wanted to put the different fonts up here, the evolution of the character, because this is very important to just show how, while everything is the same in the Hebrew culture and in the Hebrew language, like the fact that nothing changed is good for us as far as helping us reach back into time and see how things were used and how things were spoken, how it played out. As far as the foundational understanding of the knowledge, like nothing changed, but it has been some changes in the script over the years. So it's interesting to see that how we went from, again, the most ancient form, which is the pictographic form, to what they call a paleo, to how we eventually got the modern form and some contemporary forms in between. Even the Isaiah scroll font, is all very interesting. So it's good to take a look at, identify these things, because if we want to identify or read these characters, you have to know how they look. And this is just the Ha through the ages. Again, pictographic paleo, different versions of the paleo, the more modern Isaiah scroll font, and ultimately the contemporary modern biblical Hebrew font. So again, I mentioned this. The Ha is a very important character as it is one of the 3 used in the Creator's name. It appears twice in the name of Yahuwah, right? It's in the Ha and the Yah, and also that Ah sound at the end that gives it Yahuwah, that ending sound. So that's important. Understand this character and the sounds that make the Ha and the Ah. Anyway, we're going to jump into these scriptures because, again, this is how we find and really get a true definition of what a letter or what a word means. How do we define a word? By viewing it in context. And in the context of what? In the context of scripture, how we use it, the situation the word is being used in, the phrase, what's being described. And when you see them use a certain word, without anyone telling you, you're able to get an accurate a depiction, an understanding, an idea of how that word is being used, but really what it means. You can see it explains itself almost. So just to be clear, again, the Ha is the same exact spelling, same exact word, but it's has 2 separate strong numbers, just because the context of how it's used in one entry versus another. But basically it's the same character, same word, and so we included both strong numbers. But it's been used, like we said, as behold, lo, even as, like as. So it's a comparison to. It's like it means to look, behold, on the etc. So let's take a look at the scriptures. First scripture is by the sheet, also known as Genesis chapter 47, verse 23, and it reads, Then Yehusaf, commonly called Joseph, said to the people, Behold, I have this day bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you will sow the land. All right. So at first we see it says it's used as behold sometimes, but when we look at this word for behold in the interlinear, we actually look at the Hebrew that's written. This is actually another word very close to ha, but it's actually hua, like HUA. It's actually a little bit of a derivative of that word. Again, it's not exactly ha. It's changed a little bit. It's a very close word, really. But reading on, when we see it, it says, "Now here is seed for you." When he said "now," that was where the word "ha" is, right? And so that's why we have it highlighted in the red right here. But the point is, we can see as Yahushua, what Joseph was speaking, he was telling the people, now what? Now look, behold, like pay attention. Now this is for you, da da da. This is what we're gonna do. Behold, pay attention. You guys have sold as your land. Now behold, look, this is the next thing. Seed for you, sow the land. So we see this word actually translated into the English as now. So again, we can say that that's one of the meanings for ha, now, etc. Look, lo, behold, even that. But in this case, it means now. Going to the next scripture. Yakaza commonly called Ezekiel, chapter 16, verse 43. It reads, "Because you have not remembered the days of your youth, but have enraged me with all these things, therefore, behold." And we see this word highlighted in the red, behold. Yes, that is ha. In the Hebrew, it says ha. But it's translated as behold. Again, other synonyms for this is look, lo. It's calling your attention to something. That's the whole point. That's why they say it means lo, behold. Basically, it means look. He's just calling your attention to something. And we see this word again, ha, being used. It's translated as behold, but this is the word ha in scripture. It's the name of a single character, but it also has its own meaning and its own context, where it's used to mean behold, look, lo, look, and behold, basically. And it explains itself. That term is like a preposition for before you start talking. Yo, I have returned your deeds upon your head, declares Yahuwah Elohim. Have you not committed lewdness in addition to all your abominations? So there we have it. In this instance, ha is being used to mean behold. Okay, so continuing on, we got the book of Daniel, commonly called Daniel, chapter 3, verse 25. Let's read. It says, he answered and said, but I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like the son of Elohim. So very notable scripture, very popular scripture. Everybody has read it, understood this, what it's talking about. But the point, 2 interesting things. Since we're talking about Dabarym, we're talking about the words, the different scrolls, and the nuances with the scrolls. It's important to note that this scroll, book of Daniel, was written in Aramaic, which is the sister language to the Abadi, right? So that's important. But we see that they use the same term, similar terminology, and even words and spelling. But in English, it actually says but. So we keep in our ESV translation. We're going to stick with ESV. Sometimes the KJV might have it translated different or something. But in the ESV, it said but. But when you look at how they use the word, it's translated to the English as but it's pretty much in that context. He was saying look. He was saying look, like lo, behold. Even but is one of the, again, the English translations for the word ha. But however, what he was trying to say was, look, he was calling their attention to a certain thing. And that's basically what the ha is. That's why it's like, behold. It's like you calling somebody's attention to something. This translation, depending on which version of the scripture you have, it might say behold, it might say lo, it might say look, it might say but. But we need to know this is ha. He's saying ha. I see 4 men walking in the fight, etc., etc. So this was a very interesting one because we see this being used again not only from earlier times in scripture, but also even to the time of their captivity. The 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 context in which they use this word ha, it remains the same, and we see that through the Hebrew prophets and even the prophets who were around during the time of the captivity, and even in the Aramaic, they spoke and used the word same in Hebrew culture and in Aramaic culture. So all that's very important. All that's very important as far as context, understanding, etc., etc. So that's it. You know, the ha is a very it's a simple word. It's not so complex. The meaning is not very not very convoluted or shrouded in mystique. It means what it means. Lo, behold, right? And again, the pictographic is one that's looked like this. Where we see it's like an easily deciphered character. Where it's about praying or turning someone's attention to something. And that's pretty much it. Again, we listed the Strong's number because if you take the numbers and you put it into your study tool or lexicon or whatever like that, you guys can see all of the references, and it's a lot. And from there, you can go to different scriptures and you can see how the word is used yourself. And that's the point, to be the starting point for this deeper study, right? So we want to bring this conversation out, and so everybody can identify the letter, be able to look at it in scripture, see it, and understand what it is, right? So there it is. We just talked about how the fifth character of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's been a blessing. Just stick around for more word studies like this. We breaking down all 22 characters of the alphabet. So stay tuned. If you made it this far, make sure you like the video, share it with a friend if it may be relevant to somebody, one of your Hebrew brothers and sisters. Share it somewhere in the community. Subscribe so that you guys stay tuned for the next video that drop. And I'm your host, Yahuwah, the brother, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next video. Shalom.